Welcome to the Word for 2021. Today, I want to combine chapters 19, 20, and 21 together because they all fit together and you can see a progression taking place within these chapters. Once more, Joshua, our previous book, was a book of conquest. The book of Judges is a book of compromise. In chapter 17, we saw within one home false religion becoming normal. Then, in chapter 18, the corruption of a culture took place as, like a cancer, idolatry spread throughout an entire tribe. The spiral of sin was seen in that chapter through immorality and through violence. Here in chapter 19, there's a complete depravity of heart that we will read. It's an appalling and disgusting account of outrageous evil. You will read about homosexuality, gang rape and murder, apathy, and a woman's body that was cut and her limbs were then sent to all different parts of the nation of Israel. In this chapter, it is just sickening to read, to be honest. Immorality is tolerated. Habitual sin doesn't matter. Compromise is rampant. It's been said, times change, but people don't. Unfortunately, that's true. Without God, man is capable of all kinds of horrendous atrocities. And we see that in this chapter. Because of chapter 19, in chapter 20, a civil war breaks out, all because of a stubborn refusal to deal with sin. The Benjamites would not deal with what had taken place in chapter 19. Therefore, almost the entire tribe of Benjamin was wiped out. In chapter 20, there is corrupted thinking. People's minds were twisted of what was really important. They were rationalizing crime. Kidnapping was okay. It was a loophole. That's disgusting. Kidnapping was tolerated. It was rationalized. Where does rationalization come from? It comes from the idea that it really depends. Someone once said, it depends on where you are. It depends on when you are. It depends on what you feel and how you feel. It depends on how you were raised and what is praised. It all depends. That's rationalization. God in His Word had given them a standard to follow, but the people, they did what was right in their own eyes because they either rejected or they neglected God's Word altogether. And what people consider sin, it always changes when there is not a standard. I love the way that this is put together. When sin is tolerated, it soon becomes accepted. When sin is accepted, it soon becomes normalized. When sin is normalized, then later it is celebrated. When sin is celebrated, it soon becomes promoted. And when sin is promoted, soon it will be protected. What was once evil is now normal and protected. And when that takes place, a destruction of a culture always is the result. What is the good news? The good news is that God's Word, His will, and His standard of righteousness, it never changes. If you are ever questioning what is right and what is wrong, the place to go is not to look within our culture, because our culture is moral relativism. We need to go to that which never changes, God's Word. God's Word is our standard. What God said does not change. That's why it's so important to be reading God's Word on a regular basis, so we would know what He said, so then we can do and believe what He said and live out His Word in our lives, living right before the Lord. That's why it's so important, again, to be a part of a study just like this. So, thank you very much for being part of the Word for 2021.